Hello everyone, Burp here. I have a pretty big topic today. We're talking about runaways. Runaways are difficult to talk about because they're not 100% explored. However, I believe there's enough information for me to create a mathematical analysis that can at least help with a certain aspect of how runaways affect the lobby itself. There's going to be a lot of qualifying in this video because it's not 100% certain that this is exactly how it works. But I've done my best to be accurate. I've done my best to keep it as concise and easy to understand as possible. So I will be around the comments if people have corrections or if people have questions. I highly emphasize this is the hardest part of the race to understand, and I'm doing my best to make it as easy to process as possible. Let's begin quickly with what a runaway is. If you don't know what a runaway is, Measure Palmer and Silent Suzuka are the two runaways in the game. They are secret events that unlock a gold-green skill called Runaway. What this does is it converts your style from Frontrunner to Runaway. And what Runaway does is it paces up for 3 sections of the race, which are 3/24ths of the race, rather than just the singular first section in the game. What this means is you create a very large advantage at the very start of the race. What happens after that is that your speed coefficient is lower than every single other style in the game, frontrunners included. This means that you're almost guaranteed to be first place at the start of the race. However, after that, you'll slowly lose that advantage. You can really greatly affect the lobby by being in first place, and that is why runaways are commonly run with frontrunners in particular, for a specific reason that we will talk about in a second. Right now, because you are unable to make runaways in TrackBlazer because the events that trigger that green skill are disabled, we have what's called rabbits. All runaways mostly are rabbits because they are sacrificial targets for No Stopping Me. You can't really win as a runaway at the moment because you have to build them in Unity Cup and you simply do not have the stats and skill points to do so. So what you do is you tune your stamina or your wit to basically make it so they become a viable No Stopping Me or nimble nav target for your frontrunner, for your pace chaser, somebody who wants to pass them at the proper time. So most runaways are not aces at the moment. That will change once Grand Live and Grand Masters happens, as we will be able to make runaways again. That is not what I'm going to be talking about today. That exists, and Nimble Nav, of course, will work off of passing somebody slow enough that it will be a side block. However, not necessarily side block, but a near close lane block. The part of runaways I'm talking about trying to quantize is the fact that runaways stretch the pack. It has been said repeatedly that runaways stretch the pack. And that is true as far as an observation is concerned. However, there is a mechanic that quantizes this. There is a mathematical answer to how much the runaways stretch the pack in the realm of theory, okay? So that is what I am attempting to do here, is that the observation that runaways stretch the pack can be gone and mathematically proven to exist by certain mechanics that are in the game. Now, this is the early race. This is technically the second video of, I guess, an early race series. I was planning on a different video, so I guess now there's going to be 3 videos, and the early race is incredibly weird. This early race, because of pace up mode, because of pace down mode, is almost impossible to model from start to finish, which means math is very difficult. However, this is from the realm of theory based on mechanics that have existed right now. This is based off of math. Now, real things in the lobbies may be different, but I believe I have explained at least some of the things that can affect it at the very end of this video. So please take it from a perspective that this is the base, and then the randomness of the game is going to keep the essence of what this video is talking about, but then add the randomness and the scope increase of everything that happens in a race, okay? I'm not just talking for myself this time. I have gone and talked with some people from uma.guide as well as sayacord. They're close to the same people. I thank them immensely for their help on this. They've been incredibly helpful with at least making sure that what I'm saying is within the realm of reasonableness. They've answered a bunch of my questions. I really appreciate it. Go support them if you can by using their site if you enjoy it. So uma.guide and sayacord are available. Their links are in the description. As a quick refresher to how the early race really works, the early race, or the position keep, is really what we're talking about, is the first 10 sections of the game. The race is separated into 24 sections. The first 10 of them is the position keep. When you're in the position keep, you have a little zone in which your roll is supposed to stay in. If you get too close to the roll in front of you, to the lead horse based on your roll, you get what's called pace down mode. Pace down mode is very bad. This basically means that you lose a ton of lengths just from going and getting too close to them. However, on the other end, if you are too far away, there is what's called pace up mode. Now, pace up mode doesn't automatically happen. What happens is that this pace up mode has a wit check attached to it. If you succeed the wit check, you will get pace up mode. You will increase your speed by 4% if you're a backliner or a pace chaser, and that will go and put you back into your little box that you're intended to be in. This is based off of your style. These zones, these boxes that you're put in is based off of where you're at. Fronts, technically, I said it wasn't applicable before. Technically, their pace up mode threshold is first place because they want to be the lead horse. They do not have a PDM. It is impossible for them to PDM. Pace chasers are between 3 lengths always and between 5 times what's called course factor. Course factor is on the screen right now. It is determined by the course length. So the longer the course length, the higher the course factor, which means that the pack gets spread out the longer the race it is. Now, late surgers are 6.5 to 7, as well as end closers are 7.5 to 8. So what happens is, essentially, you have a bunch of different boxes that are together. I'm going to be taking this because this is the CM adjacent template. I'm going to be talking about the next champions meeting, Tokyo 1600 meter. The Tokyo 1600 meter has a course factor of 1.48 because of the math here is 0.0008 times 600 plus 1. So that times 600 is 48. And then therefore, what you do is you multiply 5 times course factor for 7.4 meters. So pace chasers want to be between 3 and 7.4 meters, where lates want to be 9.62 and 10.36, etc., etc. Effectively, what this does is you have a bunch of boxes, like I said, and the rolls want to be in those boxes. If they get too far back, they pace up. If they get too far forward, they pace down. If you notice, like we said in the previous video, the pace chaser box is much bigger than the other 2 boxes. Now, front runners don't really have a box because the front runners want to be in first place. So if you notice, there isn't a front runner box. So front runners basically just pace up when they're not in first place, or they at least attempt to with the wit check. So normally the backliners have to be outside the box. The front runners always want to be in front. This is why you generally run 2 front runners, so that they push each other by constantly going and fighting for that first position. So the problem with this is that the second place horse in the front runner position will have a chance of pace upping, while the first place horse will not have a chance of pace upping because they are already in first place. So the question is that you don't necessarily want to be in second place as a front runner because it's incredibly risky, because when the spurt happens, the fronts want to be in first for angling and scheming and other particular accelerations, Kiddison Black Alt, etc. So what if you could be in second until the spurt and guarantee that you will be first place in the spurt? How you do that is you run a sacrificial runaway. Now what this would do is now the first place horse would also pace up. The first place of the front runners would also pace up. Runaways basically satisfy this because there is a horse that is in front of the front runner position. The runaways go and they position themselves in front of the front runners. Because the front runner is then not the first place horse, they will attempt to pace up near constantly. However, this is the lead horse. This lead horse doesn't just go and affect front runners. This lead horse affects the entire lobby. If you look, if I said before, all the way back here, basically, pace chasers want to be between 3 meters and 7.4 meters from the lead horse. This lead horse is now the runaway, which means that everything is shifted forward by the lengths that the runaways happen. Now, it could mean that the pace chaser is in this zone, but most likely there is a constant pace up effect that happens in the lobby, everything else notwithstanding. So if we ignore everything else, no other skills, nothing else, and everyone was in their zones, most likely by adding a runaway that is 3 to 4 lengths above the rest of the pack, you have shifted everything forward and everyone will attempt to pace up. This does not just benefit front runners because non-front runner modes can also non-front runners have pace up mode as well. Technically, front runners have what's called overtake mode, which is slightly different, but effectively they are very close to the same. As I said, pace chasers late surgers, and closers, when they are going to try to pace up, they have a width check, and that width check is 15 times log base 10 of their width set times 0.1%. This effectively means that 1200 width is a 31% chance of getting a pace up mode, and 800 width is only 28% chance. So it's a linear scaling basically of it's a logarithmic scaling of your width stat that goes and it helps you with the pace up mode. Fronts have overtake mode, and the biggest thing that this overtake mode has is instead of a 15 modifier, it has a 20 base modifier. This has a great effect because now a max width front runner will go into pace up mode at 1200 width would be 41.58% rather than the previous 31.19%. It's an additional 10%. Also, I didn't mark it here because I typoed it, but their target speed modifier is 1.05 instead of 1.04. I'm going to be doing this from an assumption. The assumption will be we will be in a constant state of pace up, because that is effectively what sort of happens more or less. You're not necessarily in a 100% state of pace up. However, when it matters for backliners and pace chasers is whether or not you hit the proper pace up to get you into the realm of being able to use your skills to fight for the front runners. So for mathematical purposes, we're assuming that we are in a 100% state of pace up from the entirety of the position keep. There is a mathematical advantage of running a runaway specifically for front runners because of the mechanic that I just mentioned, overtake mode versus pace up mode. The first thing that I took a look at was target speed. Now, the opening leg speed and the middle leg speed every single style has a different, Every single style has a different starting speed essentially, or a speed modifier that multiplies their current cruising speed. However, when you do the math, and this was found pretty quickly, is that pretty much it's very well balanced. Everything is over the course of the 10 position keep modes. The average speed for each roll is exactly 8.88 divided by 9 for 0.986. So it doesn't really affect things in the way that you think, because there are 4 opening legs and 6 middle legs. If you do the math for those, they all sort of add up into 0.0394 for the backliners, and because of the additional 1%, 0.493 for before. So what we can go and simplify this down into is that 0.05 is 25% more than 0.04. Overtake more is 25% better than pace up mode. Okay, that's all it breaks down into. What this whole pace up situation is for mathematical terms is called a Markov problem. I'm an engineer, so I call it a finite state machine. When you are attempting to go into pace up mode, what happens is you are attempting to do a width check. You keep going and you're not in pace up mode until you succeed that width check. Then you're in pace up mode. You're in pace up mode for the duration that pace up mode exists, and then once you're done with pace up mode, there is a 1 second cooldown. Once you're done with that 1 second cooldown, you attempt to do width checks again, assuming you are outside of your little box, right? So that is the point. We are assuming we're outside of the box the entire time, and we are pace upping, and then we are waiting on the cooldown. So again, this width check happens every 2 seconds. Every 2 seconds, you roll that width check. You hope with a 31% chance at max width that you succeed, and you go into pace up mode. Once you're in pace up mode, it is 4 seconds maximum. Can maximally go for a singular section. Now, the Tokyo 1600 meter is sections 2 through 10 is 30 seconds, and each section is 4 seconds apiece. I will talk about why we'll be doing section 2. Basically, section 1 is pretty much scripted. We're not going to be talking about pace down breaks just yet. So we can PDM break, but besides that, the first section, you're generally not far enough away from the lead horse to actually pace up ever, because you're stuck in PDM and you have to wait until the lead horse gets far enough away from you. I'm going to grab a drink of water because my voice is dying. Sorry. A lot to talk about. I know. So let's say you're outside the box, you have 4 seconds to go for it, you complete your pace down. It's 4 seconds again because that is the duration of one of the sections in Tokyo 1600 meters. This scales with the actual distance of the race. I'm going to be talking in percentages so it can be applied to it. The cooldown's 1 second, like I said, and so now we need to talk about uptime. There is an uptime equation, which is basically the steady state equation. There's a couple ways that I found to do this, and I had AI try to go and simplify things for me, and then I just sort of realized there's a very, I wouldn't say simple way to do it, but a mathematical equation that does it for me. You essentially in pace up mode are either in pace up mode or you're not in pace up mode. When you're not in pace up mode, you're in either one of these states. And you're in pace up mode, you're in pace up mode, obviously. So you're either up or you're not. So if you're in pace up mode, you can do up divided by the total amount of time for a cycle, and you get your uptime percentage essentially. So this is the equation. It's quite simple, even though it looks a little tough. So uptime, every single instance of uptime is only the 4 seconds of pace up. Again, we're assuming we are in pace up for the entirety of the race. Technically, the exit condition of pace up mode is the entirety of the position keep, is the exit conditions for pace up mode is either you complete an entire section worth of distance, which is 4 seconds worth of time, or you go and are back in the box at a random point. It's the same thing as PDM. So PDM goes to a random spot in the specific zone that your roll is supposed to be in. Pace up does the same thing as well. Okay, so we're assuming we are always going to do the maximum duration of pace up mode because we're doing the maximum effect of pace up mode. The downtime examples are the failure. So if you fail a wit check, you have to wait 2 seconds until the next wit check, and the 1 second cooldown that happens after a successful PDM. This equation is simple, really, because your uptime is just the 4 seconds that it exists in the Tokyo 1600, and the downtime is the 1 second cooldown plus 2 seconds per estimated failures. So the estimated failures is the failure chance over the success chance. That's the estimated number of failures. So the expected cycle time is essentially 4 divided by 4, which is the pace up time, plus 1 plus 2 times 1 minus P over P. That percentage chance is your chance of the wit check happening. So for non-fronts is 31.19%, right? So your 1 minus P over P is 2.206, meaning that you will have a average of 2.2 failed wit checks before you actually get a successful pace up mode, right? So that is the average, okay? So you do the math on this and you find that non-fronts have a 42.5% uptime for pace up mode if they are constantly attempting to go into pace up mode. We'll talk about when you're not always doing that. For fronts, because of the additional 10%-ish of that successful wit check, you have a 1.405 expected failures before you get a successful pace up mode. You'll be pacing up more often as time goes on. So you have 4 divided by the same equation. So 4 for the pace up mode plus 1 for the cooldown plus 2 times the expected failures of 1.05 means you have a 51.2% uptime. If you notice, this is much more than the other ones. So basically, fronts get 51.2% of the time in position keep, you get 5% bonus speed, whereas non-fronts, 42% of the time, get 4% bonus speed. The rest of it is just standard speed. So basically, over the course of the position keep, front runners get 2.56 more target speed on average compared to non-front runners. Now, this is based off of like ramps, so like it'll be in pace up mode, then off, then on, then off, then on. We're normalizing down to just the 2.56% more target speed because of what you're grabbing. Now, this doesn't seem like a lot, but then you realize that, hey, if you divide them, fronts get 50% more pace up than the other rolls. This is significant because on the Tokyo 1600 meter, what you do is this 0.86% extra that the front runners get, which is that little 50% there, is for 8 sectors, which is 533 meters, a whole 4.58 meters. I'm doing 8 sectors because sector number 1 is scripted, like I talked about, and sector number 2, the runaways need to get far enough ahead that it will start to trigger pace up modes on the front runners and everyone else. So it'll take basically almost 2 whole sectors. It's not completely It's not completely that much, but that's a pretty good estimate of how long it takes before pace-up rolls start happening. So over the course of those 8 sectors, or 533 meters, you get 0.86% for 4.58 meters lengths, and that means on the Tokyo 1600 meters CM14, if you run if you run a runaway, sacrificial runaway, you have a 1.83 length advantage on average. On average is a big asterisk there. Now, this is proportional. If you want to do the math for any track, basically, if you do a 3200 meter, you pretty much double this, and it looks like a lot. Now, a couple of things. First of all, backliners, pace chasers, late surgers, end closers, they all have skills. Now, when you proc any skill in the position keep, if you were to pace up and needing to pace up, it's basically sort of works as a, because you're attempting to go back into your little zone, which means that your variance goes down immensely. To put it in perspective, if you have 50%, if you're in your zone for 50% of the time and you're able to proc those early race skills, your pace up is not necessary half the time, and you find that the actual advantage front runners get is closer to only 1.2 lengths from 1.83 lengths. So that is just basically a removal of variance because you are taking early straight skills. This works better on shorter tracks, and the first misconception I'm going to be talking about is that it's better on shorter tracks simply because there's less time to make back the advantage. The counterpoint to this is because this is proportional to the length of the race. The lengths of the race, there's more lengths that you gain on long tracks than short tracks. I'm not going to say that it's not true, because it is true, because there is less time in the mid-race for your natural speed coefficient to make back it, and there's also probably more skills on shorter tracks. But this is not the main driver of why they are more strong on miles and sprints than on longs and longer mediums. The biggest thing is there's no PDM brakes. There's no guaranteed PDM brakes on these shorter tracks, and PDM is the thing that breaks this, because normally if you UMA stand and you get a really good UMA stand proc, what's going to happen is you're going to eventually PDM. However, Runaway not only effectively adds pace up mode to those lagging, it effectively completely removes PDM for those who PDM brake. Because you just gain these lengths at the start, you're gaining these lengths as a counter to that 1.8 lengths that the actual front runners are grabbing. And the thing is, on tracks shorter than 2100 meters, you do not have that guaranteed UMA stand proc. And this means you either gamble it or you just accept you're behind by almost 2 lengths. And that is why they are quite strong on these shorter tracks. The second misconception is that Runaways only help fronts. Backliners don't get PDM, like I said, and they generally wouldn't have any, end closers and late surgers probably wouldn't get them in these these short tracks. But the pace chasers in particular greatly benefit from having a runaway. And if you're a front runner player, this may be surprising to you, but if you look at the boxes, pace chasers right here, they have such a large box because they can go anywhere from 3 meters to 7.4 meters. Because that box gets shifted forward, because you are pace upping as a front runner, they are pace upping to 3 meters in front of that runaway, behind that runaway as well. That means they can go in front of you. So if they roll a very high pace up mode and they get lucky, so let's say they're back here, this Taiki's back here, and it gets lucky and the game decides it wants to put her at the one percentile, like 100 percentile right here, the best line. Those pace chasers can just go right in front of you too. So runaways affect just more than the front runners. It affects all 4 rolls, and especially pace chasers in particular, because of how wide their actual position keep box is. They can go and slide into the lagging front runners and start to kidnap them as well. So it does affect other roles than just the front runners, and it does have benefits to those who are able to abuse systems such as PDM brakes. The lobby basically becomes a pace-up wit fest. Wit becomes much more important when a runaway exists than when not, because pace-up mode is the primary factor in driving up how well your UMA is able to get to that mid-race after the position keep. The final misconception I'll talk about is that runaway makes you immune to backliners. First of all, the rule of multiple numbers, I guess, or just multiplying, backliners have a 31.18% chance to pace up. Let's say you have 3 backliners you're fighting against. Well, then it's automatically a 67% chance that at least one backliner pacing up. This does not just give you lengths. Now, there's a big thing that I like to compare it to. Instead of a dominator debuffer that just adds lengths to you, this is closer to a stamina debuffer, which is really weird to think about, but I think it's a pretty apt description, because what do stamina debuffers do? They basically punish badly built Umas. Now, the badly built Umas is not enough stamina, it's not enough wit, and not enough mid-race. So what you are doing is you're removing all the badly built backliners because they have to pace up, and they have to get super lucky with their low wit in order to pace up and make sure that, and basically their threshold's so high because they don't have enough mid-race in general. You are also effectively removing a backliner or 2 from the game just due to bad luck. People, even with perfectly built Umas, are not going to be able to pace up every single time. And so if there's 5 backliners, you may kill 2 of them because they just don't pace up in time. So you're lowering the competition of the backliners. However, you are not just simply adding 1.8 lengths to everybody, because there will be a backliner that hits that you will have to contend with. Is all lost for backliners? That is a good question. First of all, end closes have Daring Strike. Daring Strike's an incredible mid-race skill that's very easily acquirable on a wit card. And so that sort of goes and makes it a lot harder than the previous iteration of Runaway. The previous iteration of Runaway, there were less mid-race skills available, and now we're starting to get more mid-race skills, which means backliners starting to go and fix it a little bit. Now this will go and shift again when Summer Mario exists, and Top Runner, it basically counters out the Daring Strikes and the other mid-race skills, and it becomes even parity again. But right now, Daring Strike's incredibly powerful. You can counter Runaway, kind of. And unfortunately, the answer is not very satisfying, and you're not probably going to like it if you're a backliner player. It's just to build better backliners. And that's a cop-out answer, you may say, but truly it is the way that you counter it, because the better that you build your backliner, the less important that 1.8 lengths actually is. If you get more wit, you hit more pace-ups. If you have more mid-race skills, your threshold is lower. If you have a PDM breaker, stuff like, just mile straights that proc pretty quickly, your PDM can just completely ignore this whole mechanic, etc. And finally, on the Tokyo track for this champions meeting, if you load up on corner skills, you can go and abuse the pace up mechanic, hit the corner. This corner will basically, PDM break you over it, basically, if you ever need it. But all through these corners, you're going to load it up after the pace up happens. So you're going to pace up in the first half, and then your corner skills will carry you through the mid race, and you can abuse it that way, right? So this is the thing you got to think about is, hey, the higher your wit, the more mid race you grab, the same things you're supposed to be running, and running in the champions meetings is how you go and counter the runaway strategy. It doesn't change the mechanics of the game. It doesn't change what you're supposed to be doing. In the Tokyo 1600 meter, there's additional counter. And I have been told this is controversial for some reason. I don't know why. I know why. It's because this is a very finicky ultimate. Cheer Halo Ultimate on backliners in particular, in situations where you are running a front runner as well, helps a lot against the runaway strategy, because you will not be going and passing into 5th place as easily because everybody is pacing up. Now, this is an acceleration, and this gives lengths, even though it is slightly delayed, yes. Even though if you're end closer with straightaway spurt, it still gives lengths. This punishes the runaway comps a little bit because you basically gain a bonus 1.5 lengths-ish in the actual acceleration zone, because there's a runaway. When there's not a runaway, it may not work every time, but when there is one, this arbitrages you against this. Now, is this worth 180 to 120 skill points? That is for you to determine based on the efficiency of your UMA, what skills are available to you, and the availability of your parents. I'm saying this as an option for it because it does seriously work. You do seriously stay in the back of the pack, and the pack remains a lot less chaotic when this happens, when there is a runaway in existence, because everyone is attempting to pace mode. How you can go and build your comp around this is make sure that the Umas that are in front of your backliner with this have very high wit and have a lot of early race skills so that you stay in the back of the pack. It's not foolproof. You can still sniff 5th and GG. But it does get a lot more consistent when everyone else is pulling away from you as well. So that is an option as well, specifically for this coming CM. Is it required? No. Is it an option? I believe so. All right, there's still that part 3. I know people want me to make the shrewd step video. I will do that. But hopefully that this has helped you at least understand how these runaways are working and why they are being put together with front runners, because there is an inherent advantage that can be quantized. I hope you've enjoyed this. I know this has been a difficult topic. Take care, everyone. Hopefully I'm going to be answering stuff in the comments best I can. I know this has been a half hour, but I think this topic was pretty important. So hopefully I'll get to a CM guide. Take care, everyone. Burb out.